Hello YouTube and welcome to Prime Productions. I'm here to help enhance your tabletop gaming experience. If you're new to this channel, I primarily cover Paizo tabletop role-playing games like Pathfinder and Starfinder. And welcome back to my Starfinder Playtest series where I'll discuss the new, as of the posting of this video, Starfinder 2nd Edition Playtest. As a reminder, Starfinder 2nd Edition uses the rules of Pathfinder 2nd Edition with a few minor tweaks, and that's actually what I discussed in my first video. But today we'll be covering the Ancestries of the Starfinder playtest. I actually covered the Ancestries, or at least their lore, in a previous video which should be appearing on screen now. That was made before the Starfinder 2 playtest came out, so it focused on the ideas behind the Ancestries. Today I want to focus on the mechanics. Now, I can't go over every single Ancestry feat or we'd be here all day, so I'm just going to give you a general breakdown. First I'll talk about the base abilities of each Ancestry, then I'll discuss their heritages, an Ancestry feat or two that caught my attention, and then some final thoughts. First up is the Android. They are an ancestry that has been constructed and have both biological and mechanical components so they can be healed just like normal living creatures. Also, they do have souls. As an ancestry, they get 8 HP per level and are medium-sized with a base land speed of 25 feet. Their attribute adjustments are a boost to dexterity, intelligence, and a free boost with a penalty to charisma. They start off knowing Common and 1 additional language plus their intelligence bonus and have low light vision. They are humanoids with the android trait. They also have the constructed feature which gives them bonuses to saves against diseases, poisons, and radiation, but are emotionally unaware, which gives them penalties to diplomacy, performance, and perception checks to figure out emotions. They have 5 heritages. Ancient Android is a bit of a misnomer, and it just means that as an android you were constructed for a purpose. For this heritage, you make a choice. Either your android was constructed to be a craftsman, giving the android the crafting skill and the specialty crafting skill feat, or a laborer, which gives your android the athletic skill and the hefty hauler skill feat. The other 2 options are Polyglot, which gives your android some extra languages with the option to learn even more, and Warrior, which is the weakest as it gives your android training in all simple and martial weapons, but it doesn't ever increase to Expert. Artificial Scion means that you were not made to look like other biological creatures. Artificial Scions become trained in the computer skill and have the new Freaker skill feat, which means they don't need a hacking toolkit to hack computers. Mod Fanatic is for androids who have modified themselves extensively. They can store an armor upgrade inside their body, effectively giving them 1 more armor upgrade slot than normal. They also start with a low-level armor upgrade for free. Side note, they could use this to install environmental protections onto themselves, allowing them to survive in the vacuum of space without a spacesuit. Pretty cool. Networked means that this android was installed with Wi-Fi in their head, allowing them to hack most computers at a distance of 30 feet. This also gives them the language of shortwave, a sort of Wi-Fi machine language, allowing them to effectively telepathically communicate with other sentient machines that also have the shortwave language.
We accept your terms.
Renewed androids are androids whose souls were not the first to inhabit that particular body. In other words, they are just the latest in a long line of souls that inhabited this particular android. Renewed androids can access snippets of memory from their previous lives. This makes them trained in any one skill as long as that skill can be used to recall knowledge. They also gain the Dubious Knowledge skill feat. Also, once a day, if they would be brought up from unconscious, they don't gain the Wounded condition, so that's actually pretty good. I do want to point out one android feat, Internal Compartment. This feat lets the android store a single item of light bulk inside its body. It takes 3 actions to put the item in there, but essentially that lets them quick draw that item, drawing and attacking with 1 action. Quick Draw is normally reserved only for rogues, rangers, and gunslingers if I recall correctly, so that's a pretty good ancestry feat. Overall, the android is fine. The Ancient Warrior android needs to be buffed, I think, just change it so that they gain the general feat weapon proficiency, then it would be much more useful, as it can make marshals trained in an advanced weapon and can at least get simple weapon proficiency classes like the Witch Warper up to expert. There are no xeno-android heritages, that means there's no small or large-sized androids, but I think that's fine for the core Starfinder book. If you do want to play a halfling or a minotaur android, you could use custom mixed heritage to do that, so I think it's fine to keep the core android medium-sized. I'd also like to see a heritage that gets rid of the emotionally unaware android ability. Like, I get that Paizo wants the majority of androids to be emotionally unaware, but it kinda dumps on someone who wants to make an android envoy or something. Just make an ancient android option called Tour Guide or something, where the android was designed to work with people, give them a skill feat, and have them get rid of the emotionally unaware downside. Otherwise, yeah, like I said, android is fine. Next up is the Barathu, the floating psychic jellyfish creatures from a gas giant. One ability of the Barathu of note is that they can consciously modify their own body, and that will be important down the line. They have 8 ancestral HP and start with a flying speed of 20 right off the bat at level 1, making them the only flying playable race at level 1, which has caused some consternation in the fandom. I've also heard that this 25 land speed is a typo and it should be a land speed of 5, which makes sense given a later feat. Their attribute adjustments are a bonus to Constitution and Wisdom, a free boost, and a penalty to Dexterity. They start off knowing Common and their homeworld language of Breathedin, plus more for high intelligence. They are, in fact, not humanoid, but aberrations, and of course, they have the Barathu trait. They have 2 base ancestral abilities. One is that they can rewrite their own genetics, allowing them to retrain into and out of those feats that must be taken at level 1, like lineage feats. They also have limited telepathy, meaning they can psychically communicate with someone within 30 feet, but they can only do that if they share a language, and they can't use that ability to read minds. There are 4 heritages. Dreamer is kind of interesting. A dreamer participated in a shared psychic dream with other Barathu that is kind of hard to describe. It may have given them glimpses of the future or other times. They gain an occult cantrip that they can cast at will, and once per day they can swap it out for another occult cantrip after 10 minutes of meditation. Early stage Barathu means that these are younger Barathu and their bodies haven't fully formed yet. This gives them a minor resistance to precision damage because their body is still malleable. It also makes them small-sized and gives them the quick squeeze feat. Manufacturer Barathu is a bit weird. Because Barathu can alter their own bodies, some have figured out how to do that to turn their own bodies into a biological factory of sorts. This gives them the crafting skill and the pharmaceutical crafting skill feat. Not sure how I feel about this one because, technically, rules as written, you'd still need a toolkit to craft things. Merged is kind of funky. They are a large Barathu because they are actually 2 Barathu who have permanently merged together to be one, like Garnet from Steven Universe. Because they have more biomass, they have 10 starting HP instead of 8, and because there are 2 minds in there, they get a +1 bonus to saving throws against emotional effects because they can rely on each other for emotional support. I did want to point out the Adaptable Limbs ancestry feat. This increases a Barathu's land speed to 20 because they can make legs for themselves, indicating that Barathu should have a land speed below 25. This feat also gives them the adaptive locomotion activity, giving them a swim or climb speed of 20 for 10 minutes. Not sure why they might need a climb speed of 20 when they can fly, but I'm sure there's a situation where it could come up. Maybe them being on a planet with no atmosphere, so no air for them to float through, but the planet still has gravity. So a lot of people are concerned about the Barathu because of their fly speed, but I think that their fly speed is reliant on them existing in an atmosphere because they use floating gases to fly. So in the void of space, they are in real trouble with that 5-foot land speed and effectively no fly speed. Still, I think toning down the Barathu a smidge might be called for. Limited telepathy and 8 HP and a fly speed I think in most cases is a bit much, but let me know what you think. Next up are humans who are, well, human. Although, importantly, yes, you can be a Hyliki, one of those red-skinned humans from Mars, I mean Akaton. They start off with 8 HP, a baseline speed of 25, and have 2 free attribute boosts with no penalties. They start off with common and 1 free extra language, plus others for high intelligence. And of course, humans are humans with the humanoid trait. They also have no base abilities. They have a whopping 6 heritages, but 2 of those, skilled and versatile, are the same as in Pathfinder. The other 4 are as follows. Aslanti means they are descended from, or possibly even born into, the Aslanti Star Empire, that army of space fascists I talked about in a previous video. Aslanti are really into magic, so this heritage starts play knowing a single arcane cantrip, and they can change it up once a day by studying for 10 minutes. Pretty neat. Galarian Survivor means that your family has strong ties to old Galarian back in Pathfinder's day, and those ties somehow survived the gap. You gain the Die Hard feat, a bonus Pathfinder language like maybe Tien, and are trained in Galarian lore. Also, they are trained in all archaic weapons, like all of them? Advanced weapons too? But they never get up to expert. Scavenger means just that they are used to living in harsh conditions and getting by from scavenging. Scavengers can last longer without food and water and gain bonuses to subsist and gain a bonus against the sickened condition. Urbanite is pretty cool. They are essentially adept at moving through crowds of larger cities. They don't treat dense crowds as difficult terrain and gain a lore skill related to a large city where they lived. Most of the human ancestry feats were ported directly from Pathfinder, but one new one is Augmented. This lets a human start play with a level 1 augmentation, or cybernetic implant, for free. It also increases the maximum number of implants that they can have in their body by 1. Not much to say about humans. A lot of their ancestry is unchanged from Pathfinder. I really like the Aslanti heritage, and it opens up a lot of roleplay opportunities. I feel like the Galarian Survivor heritage is a bit all over the place and needs to be thought through a bit more. Also, I'd like to see a specific Hyliki heritage for humans. Kasatha are up next, and they are 4-armed traditionalists. As a reminder, most Kasatha left their home planet on a colony ship called the Adari to try and colonize Akaton, only to find out that it was inhabited when they finally showed up. So they just parked their colony ship in orbit around the sun of the Pact Worlds. Kasatha start with 8 HP and are medium-sized with a move speed of 25 feet. Their attribute adjustments are a boost to strength and wisdom and a free boost with a flaw in charisma. They start with 3 languages, Common, Kasathan, and a free regional language of your choice, plus any more for high intelligence. They are humanoids with the Kasathan trait, surprise surprise. They have 1 ancestry ability, 4-armed, where they have 4 arms. At any given time, 2 of them are the active arms and the other 2 are inactive, able to hold things but they cannot take actions with these arms. It takes an action to switch between sets of arms, though switching arms doesn't have the manipulate trait, so it doesn't trigger things like reactive strike. Some people really don't like this, but with Pathfinder's 3-action economy, many have pointed out that having access to 2 extra arms would be too powerful. More on this later. There are 5 Kasathan heritages. Akatonian is for Kasathans who settled on Akaton even though full colonization wasn't possible. Because of popular Akatonian sports involving leaping, they grew up jumping around and gained the quick jump feat. They are also fine on sand and don't treat it as uneven ground. Kasath survivalists are descended from Kasathans that stayed on the doomed planet of Kasath instead of boarding the Adari. Evidently, after Kasathans gained drift drive technology, they came back for their remaining survivors. Kasath survivalists can hustle for twice as long as everyone else before getting tired, and they are in fact so good at hustling that they can show others how to hustle longer too. Also, they gain the Feather Step feat for free, which is nice. Canonically, most Kasathans are probably shipborn, those that were born and live on the Adari. Because so many Kasathans live together in such tight spaces, they had to learn to keep tempers from flaring. When they succeed on an emotion saving throw, they get a critical success instead. Stellar nomads are Kasathan cultural chameleons, studying local cultures and trying to adapt to their way of life when they can. If they follow the edicts and anathema of the culture they are in, they gain the lore skill for that culture. So if they followed the cultural rules on the Vesque home planet, they'd gain Vesque lore, for example. This is a fun idea, but mechanically it's just straight up worse than many other ancestry feats that give out temporary skills. I think this one might need to be made a little bit better. The Tempering heritage is the equivalent to spending that year touring Europe. Tempering Kasatha are out exploring the galaxy, a traditional rite of passage for Kasathans. They gain the Society skill and the Streetwise skill feat. Kasathan Ancestry feats are pretty standard. They have an Ancestry lore feat, a Weapon Familiarity feat, and one that makes them faster. Later on, they can gain a few feats that let them temporarily use all 4 hands at once, like Double Draw. I like Kasatha. I always have. They are a deeply religious people and have a lot of traditions, and that could lead to some fun roleplay opportunities. A few of their heritages could be increased a bit, like Stellar Nomad, but overall pretty good. The biggest problem that many people have with the Kasatha is that they can't use all 4 of their arms at once, and many are saying that their 4-arm ability is useless because it takes an action to switch between sets of arms. The alternative, however, of being able to use all arms freely could lead to some really game-breaking stuff that would just make Kasatha way too powerful compared to other races. Many on the Paizo community forums have come up with some game-breaking things of having 4 arms with no restrictions. I'll put some of them up on screen now. Next up are the Lashunta, the antenna-having, telepathic, human-like species from Venus, Castrovel. They start with 6 bonus hit points and are medium-sized with a 25-foot land speed. Their attribute adjustments are a boost to Charisma and 1 free boost, though more on this later. They start play by speaking Common and Castrovelian, which is the language of their home planet, plus any more for high intelligence. They are humanoids with the Lashunta trait and have that same limited telepathy that the Barathu have. Remember that Lashunta differentiate into the skinny, intelligent Daimya Lashunta or the strong, stocky Karasha Lashunta. New to Starfinder 2nd Edition, they can also not differentiate and become Unbound Lashunta. Those are actually their 3 heritages. Daimya Lashunta get a boost to intelligence and a flaw constitution, plus training in diplomacy and the additional lore skill feat for any lore. Karasha Lashunta gain a bonus to strength, a penalty to wisdom, and increase their bonus HP to 8, and gain a +1 to athletics checks to trip and shove. Unbound Lashunta don't change up their attributes, but instead gain a reaction that gives them a +1 to all mental saving throws for a round. Notice this isn't a once-a-day thing. They can keep doing this every round. It's a great reaction if you are a build that doesn't use your reaction very often. Lastly, Lashunta have a few interesting ancestry feats that let them use pheromones to subtly influence people, like letting them request a favor through smell or to mitigate the penalties of intimidation. I like the Lashunta and I see what they did with the heritages, but I'm worried that it will lock the Lashunta into only having those 3 heritages ever. I think maybe it would be best to move the Daimya Karasha thing to a base ancestry ability and have a more diverse set of heritages. Also, is there a reason they only have 6 starting HP? I mean, the Barathu have 8 and telepathy and a fly speed on top of everything else. Just kinda makes Lashunta lame by comparison. Moving them up to 8 HP and the Karasha up to 10 HP wouldn't be so bad, would it? Ptra are a feline-like species of aliens that were, until recently, conquered by the Vesque. They are highly competitive and generally like dance and fighting in equal measure. They start with 8 HP and are normally medium creatures with a move speed of 25. They gain a free boost along with boosts to dexterity and charisma and have a constitution flaw. Their starting languages are Common, Ptra, and Vesque. Remember, they were conquered by the Vesque. And of course they get bonus languages for high intelligence. They are humanoids with the Ptra trait and have dark vision. There are 6 Ptra heritages. Hunter-stalkers are jungle cats, giving them surprisingly large +2 checks to hide, sneak, subsist, or cover their tracks. Cravash Ptra have been genetically modified to fight the Vesque and start play with a free first-level biotech augmentation. It doesn't count towards the maximum number of augmentations they can have, so that's nice. Males chosen means that the Ptra god smiles on you. Once per day, if they would critically fail a saving throw, they re-roll that save. Pouncers are those cats that are good at jumping. They increase their move speed by 5 feet and can also kinda sorta get the quick jump feat, or half of it at least. Sand roamer Ptra are small desert survivors. They are small-sized instead of medium, and they also treat environmental heat effects as less bad and can go a whopping 10 times as long without food or water without suffering problems. Lastly, the Rime-Walker Ptra gain the standard cold resistance, and environmental cold is less bad for them. There are a lot of standard ancestry feats you might expect, like Ptra lore and such. I did want to point out competitive spirit, which is pretty fun. If an ally attempts a skill check that the Ptra is trained in, as a reaction, that Ptra can attempt it too in an effort to one-up them and get a +2 bonus. This could be great in combat if someone wants to, say, identify a creature. It's also kind of a great meta in-joke, as whenever anyone attempts a skill check at my table, every other player always rolls the same skill check whether it's appropriate for them to or not. I like the Ptra. No major issues with them here, other than I might like to see a Ptra weapon familiarity feat. Also, almost all the Ptra heritages seem a bit aggro, and like, I get it, cat people, they're predators, but also there are some literal scaredy cats out there. It would be nice to see a skittish Ptra heritage. Sharon are a group of telepathic bug aliens that have broken away from their swarm hive mind. They have 10 ancestral HP and are medium-sized with a speed of 25 feet. Their attribute adjustments are a bonus to Constitution and Wisdom and a free boost with a penalty to Charisma. Their languages are Common, Sharon, and one free language, plus any others for high intelligence. They are humanoids with a Sharon trait, and they have that same limited telepathy as Lanta and Borai as a base ability. There are 5 Sharon heritages. The Courtier Sharon can receive emotions over their limited telepathy, though they still can't read minds. This emotion reading gives them a +2 to perception checks to sense motive if they are telepathically communicating with someone. Defiant Sharon tightly hold on to their individuality against both swarm and dictators or the like. If they succeed at a will save against a creature from the swarm or a creature that is working for the swarm, they get a critical success instead. Also, once a day they can decry someone trying to infringe on their freedoms, and for a minute they get a +1 to hit that enemy and a +1 to saving throws originating from them. An Infiltrator Sharon has an iridescent shell that can be used to fascinate or hypnotize people. They can faint at a reach of 10 feet and can, once an hour, try to hypnotize a person, making them dazzled. The Swarm Exile is a Sharon who has been freed from the swarm much more recently than other Sharon. They have a ranged natural attack that does a d6 acid damage. I think this is a natural attack that can be enhanced by something like the hand wraps of Mighty Blows and the like. Finally, Winged Sharon can use their wings to increase their jump distance, though they can take feats to eventually fly at level 9. Remember, they cannot fly if they are not in an atmosphere because there's no air for their wings to push off of. It's odd that Lanta only gets 6 HP to start off with, but Sharon get 10, yet they are both ancestries that get limited telepathy as their only base ability. Overall, though, no real complaints. I'm okay with most of their abilities. Skittermander are the vibrant-haired, 6-armed, helping-obsessed mascots of Starfinder. They get a starting bonus of 6 HP and are small-sized with a land speed of 25. Their attribute adjustments are a boost to Dexterity and Charisma and a free boost with a penalty to Wisdom. They start with the languages Common, Vesque, and one additional language. Please note that I think that this is the first Pathfinder 2 or Starfinder 2 ancestry that doesn't start off with their ancestral language, which is this language that I'm showing on screen right now because I cannot pronounce it. This is because the original Skittermander language was all but abandoned when the Vesque conquered them. They are humanoids with the Skittermander trait and have 3 base abilities. Low light vision, 6 arms, which works like the Kasatha trait only with 6 arms instead of 4, and overeager enthusiasm. This is actually a penalty that gives them a -1 to perception checks to sense motive and to will saves against emotion effects other than things that would calm them down. This is because they are bad at picking up that someone might not want their help, and they wear their hearts on their sleeves. There are 4 Skittermander heritages. Everwhelp is kinda hard to explain. You see, young Skittermanders have a mouth that protrudes from their stomach. It sews up as they get older, but the Everwhelp's stomach mouth never really did, providing them with a Jaws attack. Moving on, the Gadravich Skittermander grew up in an underground colony and gains dark vision. The Scrabbler Skittermander is actually someone who has had problems mastering all 6 of their arms, so they use their lower arms to actually help out their legs. They can only use 4 of their arms rather than 6, but gain a climb speed. Lastly, most Skittermanders are probably Skitter-raised. They gain the Group Impression skill feat and gain a bonus to aid in other checks. Like Kasatha, Skittermander have a few feats that let them use all of their arms at once. They also have a bunch of wrestling feats that are flavored as them, quote, hugging, unquote. What's not to like about the Skittermanders? They are great and super fun, love them. Their penalty to emotion seems a bit off though. They are often portrayed as not only overeager to help but also eternally optimistic, so it's weird that they're susceptible to spells that would cause crushing depression. Other than that though, no real issues. Vesque are up next, and they are a 10 HP ancestry who are medium-sized but with a land speed of only 20 feet. Their attribute adjustments are a boost to Strength, Constitution, 1 free, and a penalty to Wisdom. They get 3 starting languages, Common Vesque and 1 free regional language, and then of course bonus languages for high intelligence. They are humanoids with the Vesque trait and have low light vision. They have 5 heritages. Brisk Wander Vesque increase their speed by 5 to 25, and Night Stalker Vesque have dark vision. Those are pretty easy. Plated Vesque have a natural armor that basically is treated as breastplate, though they can't take it off but can sleep in it. Venom Thought Vesque are vaguely psychic, giving them the Daze cantrip at will, plus a little bonus to know about specifically psychic stuff. Warblood Vesque are a bit weird. They get the Brutal Anatomy Ancestry feat twice, which basically ends up meaning that they have 2 different natural attacks from this list. There are a lot of Vesque combat ancestry feats like Armor Ace, which gives any armor they wear the Bulwark trait. Strangely enough, there isn't a Vesque lore feat. I thought that would have been a shoo-in with things like Athletics and Intimidation and Vesque lore. There is, however, a Vesque Weapon Familiarity feat, which is great for all those Vesque who want to use Doshkos. I've seen a lot of people complain that Vesque are slow in a system that seems to encourage mobility in ranged combat, and that's fair. A lot of people want to see the Vesque get a feat similar to that Dwarven feat Unburdened Iron, so a Vesque in heavy armor doesn't have their speed reduced to 15 feet in heavy armor. I wouldn't mind that, but otherwise I think the Vesque are fine. Venom Thought Vesque could use a little bit of a buff, but other than that. Yosoki are the last of the main ancestries. They are rat-like aliens who tend to be good at engineering. They have 6 bonus HP and are small-sized with a 25-foot move speed. For attributes, they get boosts to Dexterity and Intelligence and 1 free with a penalty to Strength. They start off speaking Common, Yosoki, and Akatonian. Akatonian, by the way, is the main language of the planet Akaton. They are humanoids with the Yosoki trait, and they have low light vision. There are 5 heritages. Akatonian Yosoki are good at repairs. They are trained in crafting and can disable locks with the crafting skill instead of thievery. Interestingly, at character creation, if they would become trained in crafting, they gain the quick repair skill feat instead of getting trained in another skill. Deep Yosoki get dark vision, pretty standard, whereas long snout Yosoki get the imprecise scent sense and can get a bonus to perception checks to sniff out things. Shipborne Yosoki are used to living on starships. If they succeed at a piloting check to plot a course, they get a critical success instead, which is unique. I don't know of any other heritage that upgrades a skill check like that. They also get a bonus to tumble through the square of a medium or larger creature and don't count that space as difficult terrain. Tunnel Yosoki are able to squeeze into tight spaces. They gain the Quick Squeeze feat, and if they are in a small space that is considered difficult terrain because it's so small, but it does not require them to actually squeeze, then it isn't considered difficult terrain for them. As for ancestry feats, interestingly, the Yosoki have 2 ancestry lore feats. One is the standard Yosoki lore, gaining acrobatics and stealth, and the additional lore feat for Yosoki lore. The other is Grandmother's lore, which is related to the patron deity of the Yosoki, Grandmother Rat, otherwise known as Lao Shu Po. That one gives them deception and thievery, and the additional lore feat for Lao Shu Po lore. Now, in addition to the 10 ancestries, there are 2 versatile heritages. The first is Borai, a term for someone who has had a brush with death so close that they came back semi-undead themselves. Borai have the undead trait, but none of the typical undead abilities, not even the player character undead abilities. They also heal as if they were living creatures, so they don't have void healing. The Borai versatile heritage gives them low light vision or dark vision if they already have low light, and it gives them access to Borai ancestry feats in addition to the base ancestry feats. Feats like Necrotized, which makes it so that they don't automatically die if they're reduced to 0 from a death effect. I actually really like the Borai. There are already 2 versatile heritages that are undead related, the Dampier and the Skeleton. Both of those give their ancestries void healing, so it's nice to have an option that gives someone the undead trait but doesn't make it a pain to heal them. I have seen a couple of people ask for a lineage feat that gives Borai negative healing at level 1, which would be fine, though there is a lineage feat that lets them get void healing as a reaction for a round once a day. Anyway, I'm just stoked that there's now a way to make Asterion from Baldur's Gate 3, an undead healed by normal healing magic. The other versatile heritage, the Prismini, is much more problematic. The concept is solid, it's really good, I like it. The Prismini are drift-touched, modified by the energies of the drift somehow. I love that. It's just the mechanics that are problematic. Firstly, their base ability is that they can sense the presence of drift technology like drift beacons. That's fine. The issue is that if they're piloting a ship, they can launch it into the drift even if it doesn't have a working drift engine, or even if it has no drift engine at all. That's cool and thematic, and it really hurts storytelling. There are a lot of Starfinder First Edition scenarios, professionally written scenarios, where getting drift engines working is the main thrust of the scenario. Heck, there's a whole story arc in Starfinder Society about finding enough of this old kind of drift fuel for the Starfinder Society's aging capital ship, and then eventually just caving in and having to negotiate with some really terrible people in order to be able to purchase a new drift engine that would fit in their old ship. With the Prismini, all of those stories are now gone. Stranded on a planet? No problem. You can just shunt your crashed starship into the drift. Need to enter an escape pod and have a scenario where you survive in the vastness of space? Nope, you shunt your escape pod into the drift pointed at Absalom Station and activate emergency thrusters. It really shuts down a lot of story opportunities for Starfinder. But the really big issue with the Prismini is the first level ancestry feat, Living Battery. First of all, it gives them what is widely considered the best cantrip in the game, Electric Arc. But not just that, if they target a technological item with Electric Arc, they can power that item. This lets them make it so that energy weapons don't require power or use up batteries for a number of rounds equal to the rank of the spell. So you know that singing disc, the weapon that uses up a whole battery every time you fire it? Now you can fire it off ad nauseum. If your Prismini is, say, level 7, you can target 2 of those because remember, Electric Arc targets 2 targets, and lets your soldier fire off as much as they want without even considering reloading. I think that's really strong, especially in a system where action economy is so tight that reloading is a big consideration. And sure, it takes up a lot of the Prismini's first turn, but it's kinda like the ultimate support, because it means you don't have to reload. It's like taking your first action to cast haste on 2 members of your party with a cantrip, with the caveat that the extra action has to be used to reload instead of strike or stride. It's really strong. There's even another cantrip in the game that works like this, except it is far, far worse. So this is obviously not balanced against the game. Listen, I want to like the Prismini. I really do. A lot of their stuff is really cool, and their flavor is awesome. But some of their abilities do need to be retooled. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Just try to remember to be civil, yeah? Remember, there's another person on the other end of that computer screen. And while you are down in the comments, make sure you like and subscribe. That tells not only me, but also YouTube that you like this kind of content and would like to see more. And until next time, thank you, good luck, and happy gaming!